The use of footprints can be a bit controversial. Some say you just have to use one, others there's no reason to do so. Well, in today's episode we dive into how, the why and the reasons for using or not using a footprint for your tent. To start with, I just wanted to clarify that myself, I never use a footprint for my tents. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't. There is actually a lot of benefits of using one, but also a lot of reasons not to. So today I will go through the pros and the cons of using a footprint and give you as many reasons as possible for you to decide for yourself to use one or not to use one. To start with, let us just quickly go through the how to, even if it is pretty obvious, and then also dive into the what to use as a footprint. Like everybody knows, a footprint is placed underneath your tent to serve as an extra protective layer against the ground. You can buy one directly from the tent supplier, from a third supplier, or just make one yourself. When you buy one directly from the tent supplier, you will get a perfect fit for sure. But that is also most of the time the heaviest option. If we, for example, look at the footprint for Hilleberg Enan one-person tent, it weighs 255 grams, and for a tent like the Big Agnes Copper Spur two-person tent, it only weighs 142 grams. It differs a lot between these two options regarding the weight, but if we then again look at these two specific footprints, it is not only the weight that is different, but also how they are used. On the Enan, you clip the footprint onto the tent and therefore pitch it together with the tent and also store it together with the tent. On the Big Agnes Copper Spur, instead, you pitch the footprint before you pitch the tent and therefore also store it separately. Well, these are the two kind of footprints that you get if you buy them directly from the supplier. If you are a bit handy, you can make a footprint yourself. Like this one I made for my Big Sky Revolution 1.5. This is a 42 grams per square meter Tyvek, the thinnest one out there, and the weight on this footprint is only 117 grams. I just used a scissor and cut it to the shape of my bathtub floor, and then also strengthened the corners with some duct tape and aluminum eyelets and some shock cord for pitching. Now, this is really easy to do and it is cheap. And you can use any sort of Tyvek that you can find, or construction plastics like window wraps or Polycro if you want to pay a little bit of extra. You can of course also, if you have the money, use DCF. These will then also function the same way as the Big Agnes footprint and to be pitched before you pitch the tent. So therefore it is a good idea to have these shock cords to keep the footprints in place while you're pitching the tent. Or a couple of small rocks could also do the job just fine. Now that we know what options we have, let's look at the benefits of using a footprint. First and most obvious reason is of course protection. A footprint is first of all used as a protection layer to extend the lifetime of your tent. Because even if you clear the area from sharp objects, branches and pine cones, it is easy to miss a small sharp object. And then when you're tossing and turning during the night and maybe moving around a bit while changing clothes, well, then you rub against that small sharp object. Then you risk getting a hole in your tent floor or maybe also your sleeping pad if you are really unlucky. Instead, if you use a footprint, that will be the one taking the damage instead of your tent or sleeping pad, hopefully. Waterproofing. Yeah, using a footprint adds additional waterproofing to your tent floor. Now, even if most tents are waterproof or at least highly water resistant, after using them a while, you will have a fabric that is less water resistant compared to when it was new. So if you are using a footprint, you will at least make sure that you have a little bit of extra waterproofing. Remember also that you have your full body weight on there, and sometimes when the ground is really drenched like a sponge, it is good to have a little bit of extra layers underneath. To keep the tent floor clean. You will then protect your tent floor from getting dirty so that you don't accidentally pack a lot of pine needles, branches and stuff inside your tent while packing, with the risk of damaging your tent. The footprint will be the one in contact to the ground to be damp, muddy and dirty. And to pack up your tent every time clean and free from dirt will make it last longer. These are the three main benefits of using a footprint, and in the end it is all about protecting your precious tent and to give it a longer life. Some say it also gives you added insulation, better cushioning and better positioning of your tent while pitching, and well, for sure that is also true to some extent. But if I would to add something to this list except these three main benefits, I would say it also helps with condensation, especially if you have a footprint that covers also the vestibules. So that was all about the benefits of using a footprint, but what about the downsides? Well, as an ultralight hiker, or at least one inspired by ultralight hiking, I would say that the main downside is of course the added weight. You cannot overlook the fact that it is added weight, and if you go for the originals we're talking about 200 to 300 grams, and if you maybe make one yourself it's going to be like 80 grams to 150 grams. So that doesn't sound like much, but it is an unnecessary weight. For number 2 on the negatives, I would say the cost. If you buy an original footprint, they are often quite expensive. Not very fun after paying a lot of money already for the tent, and then to pay extra for the footprint. I would say that if a manufacturer recommends you using a footprint, well then it should follow with the purchase, right? You could of course get away with much less by making your own footprint, little bit depending on which material you choose, but it also takes a little bit of time and it's often not for free anyways. Number 3 is bulk. It is not only additional weight but additional bulk, and it takes up space in your backpack. Maybe not so important for some hikers, but for ultralight hikers with a 30 to 40 liter pack, that is always an issue. There we have all the pros and the cons of using a footprint, I think. But if you have more to add to the list, just leave a comment. Based on these pros and cons, I still personally believe that there is no reason to use a footprint in most cases. But you will have to decide for yourself whether to use it or not. And I mean, if you don't mind bringing a little bit of extra weight or bulk, then why not? I'm looking forward to hearing your comments about using or maybe not using a footprint and your experience in this matter. So please tell us all about it by leaving a comment. But for now, thanks for watching, and if you liked today's episode, take a look at these 2 recommendations on my other videos. Also do hit like, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any future content. Happy hiking and see you next week. Bye bye.